So today is a little bit of a different one. For those of you that are watching this, you'll notice that I'm in my car as opposed to in the office, in the studio, using my DSLR camera. Now, I created today's episode for you last week. However, the SD card corrupted, so I've got to do this one on the fly. Don't say that I don't do things for you guys, because I wanted to make sure that I'm still keeping, for me, up with the consistency of posting twice a week and uploading both YouTube and podcast episodes, because to be honest, I really enjoy making them, and the feedback from you guys has been phenomenal, and obviously that really encourages me to keep going and to continue making them, because they do take up a lot of time and a lot of effort, which is why times like now are frustrating, when you put all that time and effort into a good video and then you just can't use it. But nevertheless, we soldier on. So I'm currently sat in my car today, and I thought I'm going to shoot you a bit of a vlog style episode today. I've been saying to myself for quite a long time now that I'd actually like to test out doing vlogs. So this can be the first test, and you guys can let me know how this sounds, how this looks if you're watching it, and we can go from there to see if I'm going to do any more of these. So I'm going to freestyle on the topic that I'd originally planned to be talking about, but it's probably going to be a little bit less structured. So I had a client that signed up last week, and he said to me on our initial strategy call, Jack, I am really struggling when it comes to motivation. Motivation just seems to be constantly fleeting for me. It never sticks around long enough for me to be able to get into some form of like forward momentum where I can, put one foot in front of the other, string my wings together and start creating some form of meaningful result. And this led me to think about how many times I've heard something similar to this, and why I truly believe that this is actually what trips so many people up. And I'll tell you why. There's one critical thing about motivation that most people don't understand, and it's that motivation isn't supposed to last. Its primary objective is to provide you with some form of activation energy. It's not meant to be this ever-present thing that is always around, helping to drive you forward to achieve results or take action. The best way that I can describe this, it's like the role that a match plays in starting a fire. Let's say the results that you want inside of your business and your life is a roaring fire. There's lots of things that are required to get a roaring fire. It's not just a match. You need structure, you need oxygen, you need it to be protected from the elements, i.e. chaos. And that's obviously true within your business as well. Now, we also do need a little bit of that match to get the fire started. But you wouldn't just keep then striking the match, expecting that to be the highest leverage activity that you can do to make this roaring fire, because it serves as one purpose, and that is to get going. And there's another thing about motivation that is really important for us to understand, and that is that motivation is an internal state, which means that we have as much control over that as we do the weather. Now, the challenge here is that if we believe that we need motivation to be present prior to us taking action on something, then we are going to be only taking action when conditions that we don't have control over align, which is not very often, meaning that your results are also then going to be inconsistent. And I see this really frequently with ADHD type entrepreneurs, especially because they are so feelings orientated, that they get into their mind that I have to feel this certain type of way prior to me taking action. And that is because we conditioned ourselves in some roundabout way that action only takes place after the feeling of motivation. But that's actually backwards. It's been shown that action creates motivation rather than it being the way around that we think it is. Because once we start taking action on something, we get a surge of dopamine. And with that surge of dopamine, we obviously start to feel good, but it reinforces self-efficacy, it reinforces our identity, and it creates this feedback loop that we are getting closer to whom we say we are, and those actions then create the positive feelings of motivation. So as I say, motivation is actually strengthened by action. And this is why so many of my clients come to me in a real sticky situation where they're feeling stuck. They are acutely aware that they're at this chaos ceiling that we talk about, where they just cannot seem to break through it. And then in a really quick period of time, in just as short as a few weeks, they're in a completely different space. they're in a place of what we call momentum, because that's the thing that we are actually optimizing for. We're not focusing on a great deal of how we feel. We're not making preconditions prior to us taking action. We are aggressively focusing on how can we get them into a state of momentum as soon as possible. And that momentum then creates the feeling of motivation, which will drive further results down the line. But again, just to further reinforce why I believe relying so heavily on or chasing motivation is futile, is because it is so state dependent. So for example, your energy availability massively determines how much motivation you have, i.e. how you feel. And that comes down to nutrition, sleep quality, whether you've moved your body or not, and so on. There's loads of factors that come into just energy availability alone, stress levels. So straight away, off the rip, there are 4 things there that are going to be influencing your level of motivation. So if for whatever reason, any of those 4 elements are lower or not optimized, then that means that your motivation is going to be significantly lower, and thus you're not going to take action on the things that you need to take action on to get results. That's why so many people find themselves in this feast and famine state where they are almost like flip-flopping from action to no action. And so many people experience these revenue kind of boom-bust cycles because there is a lack of consistency between the intention and the action. And that often comes down to us creating these conditions that we need to feel a certain type of way prior to us taking action, which is what I want to kind of hop on here today and talk to you about. Is I want you to get out of that need to feel any type of way prior to doing what is necessary. Because if we are forever chasing a certain state before we take action, then we are playing a losing game. Because as I mentioned, there are so many elements of your state that actually are influenced by things that are outside of your control. So we are then relinquishing the power and the likelihood of our success to beings that are greater than us. And I don't want that for you, because I want you to be in a position where you are the master of your own destiny. You are the person that single-handedly has the biggest tell on whether you are going to be successful or not. And I've found, especially over the last 6 months in talking to so many ADHD entrepreneurs, this to be really prevalent. And one of the biggest factors that stops people from taking the necessary action is that they're waiting for a feeling that, in all honesty, doesn't need to be present. The thing we need to be optimizing for is doing the work, getting into momentum, which I'll create another video, another episode diving into the science behind momentum, what it actually is, what it isn't. Because I think we often get that conflated with other ideas. But when we truly understand that momentum is ultimately just stringing dopamine together, getting little wins accumulated one after the other, you can get into a state of momentum prior to even lunch coming around. And that then is going to influence the rest of your day and the rest of your week. And that's the thing that we need to be optimizing for. The actions that are going to get you into a state of momentum as soon as possible. Because like the analogy that I always give to my clients, when the car that is parked on your drive, like I am right now, is stationary, it is incredibly difficult to move it because there is no momentum. But as soon as we start to get some form of forward motion on that car, it becomes increasingly more easy to continue to move the car. And that's because the car is in a state of momentum. And that is what we are optimizing for, is to get into and stay in a state of momentum. Because for as long as we get the car moving and then stop, get the car moving and then stop, we are expending a tremendous amount of energy and effort, constantly just trying to get the car moving again. And I think that's a large portion of the pain that a lot of us experience as well with having this brain type, especially when we're trying to achieve ambitious goals in life and in business, is that it feels so exhausting all the time because we're constantly stopping and starting. And when you actually learn how to get into, as I say, this consistent place of momentum where it feels like you're no longer swimming against the tide, but you're actually swimming with the tide, and every stroke, every amount of effort actually exponentially carries you forward, that is such a great place, because you can then truly start to feel the benefits of what it's like to have this brain type and almost unlocking all of its capacity rather than us constantly fighting with it all of the time. Because as I say, it's exhausting when we are constantly stopping and starting. So that's my little rant for today. Hopefully there is something that lands for you there. It's something that you resonate with. Obviously, this is a little bit of a different one today, sat in the car as opposed to being in the office. But nevertheless, hopefully you enjoyed it. Give me some feedback on how you found this episode, with it being slightly less structured, more just whatever is present on my mind. And if you're enjoying it, I'll try and create one of these a week for you. Speak soon.